Joe,
Hey,
so happy to be here with you.
I'm so happy to be with you.
The more that I've dove into your work and also studying the self through the myriad of conversations I have on this podcast, I really come to see how, and also in your work is reflected so much so, how addiction lies on a spectrum. And perhaps the most fundamental addiction we have is to identity and to our personality structure and its corresponding biological pharmacology. Are you familiar with dissociative identity disorder? Have you looked into it a little
Sure,
bit?
I know dissociative.
It's so interesting to me, and I've been diving more into it recently, how essentially an individual with this disorder can have the experience where you have multiple personalities. You have as few as two, up to 100, and the corresponding personalities will correlate to different behavior and a completely different outlook on life, on self. Some will be left-handed, another personality will be right-handed. Some will need glasses, some will have diabetes, some will be allergic to peanuts, another won't. And it's so interesting, and it points to how ephemeral our personalities are. And so I'd love for you to reflect on that, because as we start to dive deeper into who we are in our true self and our true nature, we see how our personality, as you really state so beautifully, creates our personal reality.
Yeah, so let's start with a very simple understanding. Your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. So the present personality who's listening to this podcast has created the present personal reality called their life, not their mother, not their ex. They're responsible for creating their life. And if they think the same way, they act the same way, and they feel the same way, they're the same personality. And of course, they'll have the same personal reality. And I think most people try to create a new personal reality as the same personality. And it doesn't work. We literally have to become someone else. So then, if the majority of our thoughts are the same thoughts based on memories we have of experiences in our life, the moment we start remembering our problems, we're thinking in the past, right? So those memories have a feeling or an emotion associated with them. So the moment you think about your problems and you feel unhappy, not only is your brain in the past, now the body's in the past. So it's that thought and that feeling. It's the image or memory and the emotion. It's the stimulus and response that's immediately conditioning the body to memorize that emotion. Now the body is literally living in the past because it's so objective. It doesn't know the difference between a real life experience that's creating that emotion and the emotion that person is fabricating by thought alone. So to the body, it's in the past experience 24 hours a day. Okay, so now the body physiologically is now in the past. So then the hormones of stress create the emotions of anger and aggression and frustration and impatience and competition and hatefulness, and fear, anxiety, worry, insecurity, envy, jealousy, guilt, unworthiness, shame, suffering. Those are all derived from the hormones of stress. Turns out when that response switches on, when we perceive a threat or a danger in our outer world, the response from whatever condition in the outer world gives the body an arousal. And so then if you keep doing that, and you keep giving the body a rush of energy, the body becomes dependent on its external world to feel something. So the arousal from your coworker, from your ex, from traffic, from the news, something in your outer environment is producing that kind of addictive rush of energy. Then people begin to use the problems and conditions in their life to reaffirm their addiction to that emotion. They need the bad job, they need the bad relationship, and they become addicted to the life that they don't even like. And so an addiction is something you think you can't stop, or an addiction is something you know that is not good for you, and you do it anyway. So people are unconscious to the fact that the arousal from the stress hormones is knocking their brain and body out of homeostasis. It's knocking it out of balance the majority of the time. So we can actually think about our problems and create the same physiological response as if we were being chased by a predator. So what was once very adaptive becomes very maladaptive. So you turn on that response, you can't turn it off. Now you're headed for disease, because stress is when the body's knocked out of balance and there's no opportunity for the body to return back to balance and order. That imbalance becomes the new balance, and that's when we head for some type of disease or imbalance in our bodies. So then those emotions that we feel tend to drive our behaviors, and we behave as if we're in the past. And if those emotions are just really chemical records from past experiences, then we probably more than likely remember the past instead of remember the future. So 95% of who we are becomes, an automatic set of programs in our personality. So if we really teach a person how to think differently, how to act differently, and how to feel differently, give them new information, have them learn that information, have them teach that information back to somebody so it's wired in their brain, have them understand exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it so that how it gets easier, remind themselves enough time to install the circuitry so that they have neurons and circuits in place to make a different choice, to do a different thing, create a different experience and feel a different emotion. If you change your personality, would your biology change? The answer is 100% absolutely yes. And we can do it in 7 days. Now, a person with a dissociative disorder or multiple personality disorder had traumas in their life, most of them, from childhood. And the way they coped with the constant abuse was that they would just dissociate from this world and go to another world. And they would live in that world and create a different character than the character that's being abused or molested or whatever. And so each one of those different personalities, just like creating a new personal reality, it takes 7 days. They've been doing that for so long that the myriad of personalities of thinking differently, behaving differently, and feeling differently produces immediate biological changes where the person is allergic to peanuts in one personality and not in the other. So in a sense, that speaks to human potential, because that's exactly what we're doing. When we see people heal from chronic health conditions, I ask them, where is the disease? Where did the disease go? And 100% of the time they say, it's in the old person. It's in the old, I'm no longer that person, I'm somebody else. So of course the disease would exist in a different person. It's a different physiology. So teaching a person after years of thinking, acting, and feeling the same way, running those programs, teaching a person how to become so conscious of their unconscious thoughts, so aware of the defaulting habits and behaviors, and to notice when they start feeling different emotions, that you got to catch yourself from going unconscious and returning back to that person, for them to unlearn and relearn, to break the habit of being themselves and reinvent a new self.
So as we continue to dive deeper into the science, spirituality, and mechanism of this transformation, I love how you're pointing to the personality structure